Hello, welcome to the Living Undeterred Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnston. I am the founder of the Living Undeterred website and blog and podcast. And I'm very, very excited today to announce a special guest, a good friend of mine and somebody who's been an important part of our life as we have navigated through this journey that we currently are on. Kevin Rinker is with the AJGA and the American Junior Golf Association. As those people who have followed our story know, golf consumed me for a while after our son Seth passed away from a heroin overdose in October 4th of 2016. Matter of fact, one of my chapters in my book is Golf Saved My Life. And so I'm very excited to have a conversation with Kevin. Kevin has been an advocate of junior golf. He's become a friend of mine, and he's been a big supporter of what the American Junior Golf Association has and is doing. So with that, I will introduce Kevin. And Kevin, again, very happy you're here today, and I look forward to having a lengthy and in-depth conversation with you over the next hour or so. Thank you very much for being here.
Well, Jeff, I'm honored to be here. It's hard to live up to something that like what you just said. So they're probably at the end of this, they're going to be thinking, well, he must have introduced one guy and somebody else showed up for this. But I'm super excited to be here as well. We've gotten to know you and your family very well over the last 4 or 5 years. So for us, it's become a personal story as well. And so a lot of fun for us. I live just north of Atlanta right now, which is where the AJGA is headquartered up in Brazelton, Georgia, near Chateau Elan, which is a very nice golf club and winery. And I'm originally grew up in the Orlando, Florida area. Have been in sports and sports marketing for about 35 years, which sometimes is hard to admit. In various forms and fashions across a couple of teams in the NBA, NFL football, and some of those things, and really got into golf and got into the AJGA purely, by accident back in 2007. And so, that's kind of how I ended up in golf. I can talk a little bit about, the AJGA, how I got introduced here, and it. For me, a lot of it goes back to people like your son Ian and my introduction to the kids. So I was with a hospitality and travel company. We signed on to do a PGA Tour title sponsorship in 2007. And strangely enough, I was the sports guy at Wyndham. And they said, you're going to run the PGA Tour title sponsorship. And so I did. And quickly thereafter, the tournament director for the Wyndham was a former AJGA guy and said, you need to get involved in sponsoring boys events because this is your future tour players. And so we did. I did. And I absolutely fell in love with the kids, fell in love with the parents, fell in love with what the organization did. We ended up taking on a few more sponsorship opportunities with the AJGA, and eventually in 2014, I was asked to join the board. And every step of the way, I just saw a culture and an organization that did things the right way and made every decision based on some boy, some girl, somewhere in the United States that they were going to have an impact on. And 2017, I got asked to come over and run the foundation full time, and I said, absolutely. At that point, I had drank all the Kool-Aid I could drink, and I knew this was a perfect place to be. And so I've just, since then, loved it even more. We got some great families, about 7,000 members, and I tell people all the time, wow. I would go have dinner, coffee, have a glass of wine. If we've got 7,000 members, I'd go to do any of that with everybody but about 3 or 4 people. That's how great the people are. And you don't hear that in a lot of youth sports and junior sports and that sort of thing. We've just got great kids, great families. So I'm happy to be here. I love what I'm doing and super excited about the AJGA.
Well, I'm not sure if I defined it, but the AJGA stands for the American Junior Golf Association. And just to give you a quick background of how I stumbled into it, like every dad out there with a young golfer when they're 2 years old and they're on the tee box, you would think we're the next Earl Woods and Tiger and Rory and Justin Thomas and all these guys. And as they get older, especially in Iowa, it's very difficult for us to find quality tournaments. So we typically start with our local Optimist clubs. And the Cedar Rapids Optimist has a tremendous influence on junior golf. They do a super job. And Zach Johnson, this is the hometown of Zach Johnson. And we were lucky enough to join Elmcrest Country Club back in 2006, I think it was, the year before Zach won the Masters. He won in 2007. And Zach's a local legend here. He came up through the ranks and was unrecruited in high school and went to Drake and had a good college career. It wasn't, first team All-American stuff. And the legend is that Zach came to his dad apparently and said, his dad's like, well, you got your degree, now go out in the business world. And Zach's like, well, Dad, there's this thing called the Hooters Tour. I think I want to go give it a try. I mean, I'm not sure if that's accurate, but that's kind of the lore now, the mythology behind Zach. And he went out and the rest is history. And there's a lot of young men and women in young golf that see these stories. And so anyway, peeling back to us, I mean, I started going around to the Iowa Juniors Golf Association. And Tess Gowdy was the person. She's still involved here locally with the Iowa club. Played in junior tournaments, 3 and 9 hole tournaments. And then Ian got a little bit older. We started playing in 18 hole tournaments. And then I remember when he was about 10, we were walking with some parents and somebody said, you ought to try this tour called the Plantations Tour. And I had never heard of it. And we decided to look online. And this was really the beginning of the explosion of social media with being able to sign up for tournaments. And now you guys, everything's run by the internet. And so we went and did some Plantation Tour events. And then ultimately the Hurricane Tour came in and bought the Plantation Tour. And again, Tiger Woods was involved with that. I think he's a investor in the Hurricane Tour. I met a gentleman by the name of Paul Ellis, who's in my book. And as I find out later, Paul's daughter, Lindsay, died from an autoimmune disease. And when she was a teenager. And again, that's another golf story that takes up a chapter in my book. And so then I started thinking, okay, Ian played in some of these events and he won. And I thought, okay, where do I raise the bar? And there was this bucket list, AJGA. I'm like, oh my, this is like the PGA for junior golf. Everyone said this is where you want your kids to play if they want to play college golf. You've got to play the AJGA. So I said, okay, I want to enter in a tournament. You have to have stars. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought I could just write a check. You guys won't take my check. So then I had to go back and we had to relearn how to qualify for tournaments and stuff. And Ian then, I think he won a Hurricane event. And next thing you know, we enter AJGA and, he never really did super great. I think he did a top 20 one time in Ohio, at, the Memorial, I think. And then magic happened, man. And I spent a whole, part in the book about the journey of that moment in St. Louis when Ian won that AJGA event. Man, it was, it's one of the greatest moments of my life, and it really has little to do with golf. I mean, it has a lot to do with just humanity and love and compassion and the culture and the family that supported us when our son died. And for those that are new to this story, I'm on the living undeterred mindset that I've kind of stumbled into. It's trying to be resilient and finding coping mechanisms to survive, life that, life is life, it's chaotic, it's unfair, it's unjust, it's mean, it's cruel, but it's beautiful and it's awe-inspiring and it's special and it's very, very fleeting. It's short. I mean, our time here is very short. So anyway, so that's the background with the AJGA. And again, I have some other things I want to talk about as well, but I think going back to the beginning of the AJGA, Kevin, what were the first hurdles you guys have? I know when I interviewed Beth in the book, she talked about, and I didn't prep for this, but I think, is it Stephen Hamblin? Is he kind of is he the director that kind of had this vision about that? Was it something you guys Steve probably thought, well, we got to get an organization together that allows junior golfers to compete at the highest level. And then I want you to kind of segue into recruiting. Because that's where I struggle the most as a parent with trying to get Ian exposure to colleges. So I know I threw a lot at you there, but that's the world of ADD.
Yeah. So Stephen, and Stephen's been here. It was actually an organization that was started in Atlanta by 2 guys who really were not looking to create this national footprint for junior golf. They were just trying to figure out how to have events for kids, for to let them play and try to figure out if much like Little League or AAU baseball or whatever. And so they started some local events. They eventually hired Stephen. Stephen's now been with the organization as the executive director for more than 35 years. And he just had a vision that continued to grow. And as they started doing more, local events, and that grew to regional events, and eventually that grew to sort of a national footprint. But I mean, it's sort of driven by the market as well, because, you talk to kids who played, you talk to Zach, and Zach would probably tell you when he played AJGA golf, there might have been 25 events. And we talked to kids who played as recently as in the mid 2000s. And they were like, well, yeah, it feels like there were about 55, 60 events maybe. And here we are today, on our calendar. If things go well with COVID, we could do 130 events this year in about, in about 30, 37, 38 states. And so it's just really grown, and it's grown because there's been a call for it from people like yourself who say, you know what, I see this as an opportunity for my child, boy or girl. And I just want to play junior golf. And our position in this, again, one of the reasons I love the AJGA is because I was able to see it from the outside looking in. And so I'm able to speak from an inside position looking out now with some real, I don't know if integrity is the right word, but just knowing that they were spending my money as a corporate partner, and I loved how they spent my money. So now I can sit in the other seat and look at people in the eye and go, look, I'm telling you that we're going to treat your donations really well. We're going to treat your kids really well. We're going to make the decisions all the time based on what's right for a boy or a girl, not what's right for the organization, or not what's, how we're going to make the most money. And it's because of that, the organization has just continued to evolve, continued to be a center of excellence. And to your point, you said, Jeff, it is the PGA Tour of junior golf. It's where kids who are elite want to come play. And then what we've done is we've created a really, really good relationship with two organizations, the USGA and the NCAA. And because of that, we provide an opportunity from a very elite level for amateur junior golfers. And so now the college coaches come. So it's just kind of this perfect storm where when you start to create events, college coaches see their elite players, they start to show up. Then people like Jeff Johnston go, you know what, I got to get my kid playing there because I know college coaches are headed there. So we have a database of college coaches that we communicate with on a regular basis, that they can log into our coaches site on our website. And I'm talking not like 300, but I'm talking like 3,000 college coaches that we intimately communicate with, keep them posted. They can go on and look at kids' swing videos if they're not able to travel. They can find out information on how the kids are performing in tournaments and what equipment they're using, all of that stuff that just helps educate them and reduces the stress from a recruiting standpoint for college coaches and for parents.
Well, I think Ian now he's a sophomore academically at South Dakota in Vermillion, South Dakota, and would be a freshman if he takes advantage of the extra year, which I'm sure he will. And he had the adjustment. I mean, he had a pretty dominant junior career. He was 4-time MVP in high school here. He was the state leader in stroke average in Fore, which is the big schools here in Iowa. But man, when he got to college, it knocked him back. I mean, the AJGA definitely prepared him well, but nothing prepares you well until your feet are thrown into the fire, and he struggled. He struggled that first semester. He made honor roll academically, did great in school, but golf was a tough transition. I mean, his scores were decent, but they weren't decent enough to make the first tournament. And that motivated him. And I think the AJGA for me really prepared Ian for adversity and playing against the best junior golfers in the world. I mean, you guys pull in, that's one of the myths is people think, well, it's an American golf tour. Well, I don't know what your foreign exposure is, but every tournament we were in, Ian was paired with someone from Japan or Russia or you name it. It was awesome. It was absolutely, and he still has some of his good friends that he communicates on social media that he's met through the AJGA. It's awesome. So, I want to talk about something that, again, going back to my story a little bit, and I want to get into Leadership Links because I owe Leadership Links, some time on this podcast. What's such a beautiful idea you guys came up with. Absolutely home run. You guys hit a hole in one, I think I call in my book. When our son, for people that are new to my podcast, my oldest son, Seth, died of a heroin overdose on October 4th, 2016, on the day of districts, Ian's sophomore year. And I opened the book with the story where I was taking the clubs out of the trunk, and every dad, every mom is all excited. And I was going to run home and pick up my wife, and we were going to drive up and watch Ian play. And Ian's the number one golfer, and Prairie had never made state before. And this was our year. And at 6:30 in the morning, my phone rang. And my life changed forever. And at that moment, I made a decision not to tell Ian, Kevin. And like every parent that has these opportunities given to them, I decided that nothing good would be coming to tell Ian. At that moment, his brother died. And for him to go, uninterrupted, unburdened, and enjoy his day that he worked so hard for. And his brother wasn't coming back. So I didn't feel like I needed to do that and actually affect the other kids and the momentum of that day. So I selfishly, in a way, got in the car and drove home. And then my only focus was, how do I tell my wife that our son is dead? Which, I talk about in the book how I pulled that off, calling my dad and getting some guidance. But anyway, fast forward later, I sat down with Ian after we had raised some money on a GoFundMe. That was the first thing we did. The family decided to raise some money, and we donated to AJGA, which is where my son was a patient for alcohol and substance abuse. And Seth, before he died, was a patient there for 45 days, which I'm on the board of directors now of AJGA. So one thing that chaos does is it forces you to get involved in things that you weren't interested in. But anyway, so I was sitting around with Ian, and I go, Ian, I don't feel like we're doing enough, man. I want to honor Seth, and I want to help people that are having problems with addiction and substance abuse. And just somehow I came across Leadership Links on an AJGA. You guys are great at promoting it. And I thought, Leadership Links, what the heck is this? And I looked and I thought, oh my gosh, this is it. This is what I want to do. I called Beth Doctor up, and Beth gave me the whole spiel about it. I signed up, and then immediately Ian started using this Birdies for Charity type thing. The local newspaper got a hold of it. KJ Pilcher called one night, interviewed Ian. The next day, he's on the front page of the sports as we're heading into a golf tournament. All these parents are coming up, hugging me and crying. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? They're like, you haven't seen the sports page? But it all started because of Leadership Links, because I didn't have a platform to tell our story and to raise money. And you guys just, like I said, hit a hole in one with this. And so we started raising money, and the rest is history. The Des Moines Register reached out. CBS Sports flew out, stayed for 4 days, did a documentary. Zach Johnson got involved, narrated it. It's on the internet. And then I found out about this award application that I could submit for Ian called Jerry Cole, which again, I want you to kind of talk about that as well. So that's your setup for Leadership Links. Who came up with this idea? And man, I tell you what, if you're a parent of a junior golfer and you're in the AJGA and you are not in Leadership Links, I got to hold back here because I'm going to get upset. You need to get involved in Leadership Links. What you guys do is absolutely phenomenal, Kevin.
It is so amazing, and let me start by saying Beth Doctor is really the one who started it. I mean, Beth had this idea, birthed it. She is so super passionate about it still, loves to talk about it. But it was just an idea, and it was a way to sort of build character, develop some things in kids. And I don't think at the beginning we had any idea what it was going to become. And now it is it's become this thing that's my favorite thing we do. I actually think, you just mentioned that you think we do a good job promoting it. I actually think it's still underserved because I think it's the best thing that we do. I think it's something that parents really care about. College coaches love to hear about, and it's one of those things that when golf is put in perspective, what's really important is these things like Leadership Links and the ACE grant and some of the other things we do. But when you can take a 15 or 16-year-old boy or girl and they can get engaged in doing something that not only benefits them personally, but has an impact on a community, has an impact on their family, that becomes so much more than golf. And I look at it sometimes and I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed that I was a sponsor and on the board. And it wasn't until I walked in the door here in 2017 and I'm like, I need to dig into this a little bit. I need to figure out what is Leadership Links. And the more I dug into it, the more I'm like, we're not telling this story enough. And it is amazing. I mean, it's about character development. It's about integrity. It just speaks to our mission statement. But it's it's one boy, it's one girl, it's a kid somewhere in the middle of South Dakota or a girl in the middle of upstate New York and saying, I found this thing that's important to me. It's a nonprofit, it's a 501c3, and I want to do something about that. And we've been able to create a program that comes alongside them, creates the structure, the formality that allows them, empowers them to go out and start doing what they want to do, which is making a difference. And it can be giving hours to support a charity. You can be raising money to support a charity. As long as it's a nonprofit, that money can go to support that charity. And we're getting close to we're getting close, Jeff. I don't know if you'll hear sometime this year, because I know we'll pass it. We're at about $3.9 million in charitable dollars raised. And it's always important for me to stress that that's not the AJGA. That's kids like Ian. That's kids, all across the country who have been part of this. We're over 3,000 kids who have participated. We've supported more than 3,800 different charities. But it's really a misnomer when I say we, because the we is really the kids. The kids have done that. We're just blessed to be part of it and to come alongside them and support them and give them some structure, create websites, write letters, give them some tips via email. But they've got to go out and do the heavy lifting, which is going out and saying, knocking on doors and going, hey, I've got this charity that I want to raise money for. It's called ASAC, and here's what ASAC does. And by the way, would you give me $5 for every birdie? Or would you give me $50 because this is what I'm doing? It's the kids are the ones who have pushed us just north of $3.9 million, and it's pretty incredible.
The great thing about this is when we were raising money for Leadership Links, I guess I wasn't aware of the ACE grant program. I kind of naively just thought about not naively, but I thought about Seth. I thought about, well, how can I raise money and honor him and help out junior golfers? And so when people raise money for Leadership Links and the money's kind of split this was a couple of years ago that Ian was involved. Now he's in college. He's not, but he's still raising money. But anyway, so half the money went to the organization that the golfer subscribed to. So it could be a cancer thing. It could be alcohol substance abuse. It could be Mothers Against Drunk Driving. It could be sexual abuse, whatever thing that junior golfer, subscribes to or has a lot of, belief in. And then the other half went to the ACE grant program. Spend a few minutes here telling me, the idea behind that. Cause that just makes this thing even, I know awesomer isn't a word, but it makes it awesomer.
Right. So, the decision to take the money that was raised for charity and split it 50% to the local charity or the cause that the junior golfer was interested in and 50% for our ACE grant was, our portion of that was that we were writing letters and we were creating, websites, and we were building, websites, dropping pictures and doing all the stuff that helps the kid. Then all they really got to, they've got to ask for the money. And then we process the payments and we pay the fees and that sort of thing associated with that. But what our half of the money ends up doing for us is helping to fund a program called the Achieving Competitive Excellence Grant, or ACE grant. Our mission, again, is to help, develop character of young men and women and let them use competitive golf as a vehicle to try to earn a college scholarship. Well, when you look at kids who don't have the financial capability to play a regional schedule or a national schedule, then they need some help somehow. And so this program was designed, it was actually launched really right on the back end of the first tee announcement about 19, 20 years ago in Central Park, when the first tee sort of had this big press conference and kicked off and said, we're going to build a program, we're going to go into urban areas, we're going to go into underserved markets, we're going to create a program and teach kids and introduce them to the game of golf. And our executive director, Stephen Hamblin, left that press conference and said, who's to take care of these kids after they get introduced to the game of golf and decide that they want to play? And so the ACE grant was born out of that. And we've given back to about 2,900 juniors. We've given almost $5 million, actually $5.3 million to. And that money is used strictly to allow them to offset the expenses of traveling to play golf, whether it's airfare, hotel, rental car, meals. And again, it's designed so that if Johnny's family can afford it, but Tommy's family can't, then Tommy's family can apply for this ACE grant, get the money, and it allows them to do everything that they want to do. And the beauty of it is it was designed in I don't want to say in partnership with, but under the approval of the NCAA and the USGA, so that kids could get money but still maintain their amateur status and not lose out on playing college and that sort of thing. So
that's a good point. I guess I never considered that aspect of it. I know when we did our book, and by the way, this is my book that I wrote, and that's my son Seth. But we were advised by his golf coach that Ian cannot sign any copies of the book because of NCAA rules, which don't even get me going on that. I mean, this is a book to honor his brother who died, and there's all the money goes into a nonprofit. So, but we just figured out, the NCAA has these crazy things. So yeah, I could see where you don't want the ACE grant money to prohibit some junior golfer. You're trying to do good, and all of a sudden you end up doing bad unintentionally. But where do you see junior golf going? I've seen a tremendous evolution, all mostly positive. But where do you see junior golf going? Obviously, in a COVID world, it makes it I fly off on Sunday to Arizona to see Ian play in a tournament. And last week when he was in Florida, we couldn't go. So, I had to watch online, which is even worse because you sit there and hit the refresh button all for 4 hours. I'd much rather sit there and watch him hit a ball out of bounds live. But anyway, so where do you see junior golf going? I mean, what's the short and long-term plans for the AJGA?
I think we want to be part of a broader conversation about junior golf. We don't ever, I think, we don't make any excuses for being an elite level junior golf organization. And we run very elite events where they feel like PGA Tour events. And it gives kids that feeling when they step on the first tee and hear their name announced and they see the signage and all that stuff that this is the real deal. And it's a college preparation, program. But there are so many good. I mean, U.S. Kids Golf does a fantastic job of getting kids going in that 6 and 7 and 8-year-old age group and on up. State organizations do an outstanding job, and in some states, the high school golf associations are really good. Right. So we really want to be part of sort of a broader group of golf organizations that are just providing a platform, a place for kids to play. And if a kid evolves into a boy or girl evolves into an elite level junior golfer, wants to to try to play college golf, we believe that we put on some really, really good tournaments, and we hope that they'll come and join our organization and play events. I don't see golf going away. In fact, I think it will continue to grow because of kids and families who got introduced to it during COVID, and parents who said, well, we can't do that and you can't go do that, but we're members at a local club, or the local municipal course is open, and let's go get some fresh air, let's go get a little exercise, and let's go play. So I think the game is going to continue to grow. I think our role, if I had to speak specifically to what our role is going to be in probably the longer term, really would evolve into a conversation about diversity and inclusion, because that's the direction we're heading as it relates to staffing and internship and events. And I mean, we've got some really amazing events. We just got Harold Varner III introduced last year. He launched his first AJGA event to a huge amount of success in about 7 days. The Cameron Champ's grandfather passed away, and Cam and his dad wanted to do something to honor his grandfather. And so they're going to host an event, for kids of color. We've got 13 ACE Grant kids that are playing in that event. But awesome. There are players who are starting to understand their role in being able to give back. And so from a diversity standpoint, from an inclusion standpoint, we've kind of been asked, because of where we are in the hierarchy, we're not the PGA Tour, we're not the LPGA Tour, we're not even the Korn Ferry or Symetra, but we have a voice in golf and we have a position of leadership. And so we've been asked by some of those organizations to just sort of step out in leadership as it relates to diversity and inclusion, because we can, and we can try some things and we can do some things that maybe some other organizations need to sort of figure out. And so we feel pretty confident and pretty excited that that people are like, why don't you guys take the lead on some of these initiatives? And we're like, absolutely. So we're looking at, we're actually, we run our own junior events, but it's so important to us that we're actually engaged in a conversation around maybe putting together an HBCU event for historically black colleges and universities, because we feel it's important that we be on the front end of the diversity and inclusion conversation, be leaders in the space, give more kids opportunities to play. And that, it's self-serving too, because it helps grow our ACE grant program in a lot of respects. When you talk about some of these HBCUs, they don't have budgets like,
right.
like, even like a South Dakota, you guys might have a small budget compared to Arizona State, but there's always somebody who has a smaller budget. And so I just saw a story recently on an HBCU who the coach was having to get equipment donated because the team didn't have equipment. And so there's an opportunity there for all of us in the golf space to come alongside some folks and say, hey, we're going to help create opportunity. We're going to help show the way. And the AJGA is really, really proud to be part of, I think, being on the front end of that and leading it.
I will tell you that when Ian played in FCWTs, Hurricanes, he's played in MAJGTs. That's the tour out of the Illinois, the Midwest June. Yeah, they are. And I was going to ask you, where is the AJGA and maybe the golf industry as a whole positioned for women's golf? Now, I'm the father of 3 sons. And, most everything I did is always traveling with other golf dads and moms, but of male golfers. Where is the women's golf industry, or I guess, is it well positioned right now, or do you feel there's tremendous room for improvement in that area?
Can I answer yes to both of those? Because I think
I was hoping you would.
I think it's very well positioned, and it's interesting you asked that because this is International Women's Month, and so we're proud to be part of that conversation. And I'm going to give you some numbers that are not like, this is not 100% correct, but it's like I'm off maybe one number. And so like our staff, we have 65 people here at the office. We have, we're just about 48%, 49% female, 52% male. Of the people who run our tournaments, we actually have more females than males running our golf tournaments. So in our operations department, it's actually flipped. When we run tournaments, we are all, we used to take the approach that the best way to run a tournament was to design a field, whatever number that was, let's say it's 100 kids in the field. Let's allocate spots based on our membership. Well, our membership traditionally has been somewhere around 65% male, 35% girls. So in that scenario, we would say, okay, 65 boys are going to get into this event, 35 girls. We've slowly been, even though the membership number's changing some, but not a lot, we're actually trending ahead now of the number of playing opportunities for females compared to the percentage of membership. Now, you as a parent of boys may go, oh, I'm not sure. And so that we are having to sort of have that conversation with some folks and say, hey, look, when you make a decision, there's always kind of the counter to what
right.
you're doing. We just feel like it's the right thing to do to say we're going to provide more opportunities for girls. Membership-wise, there may be, 60% boys and 40% girls, but the playing opportunities are going to start to look 50-50. And part of that's because there's just more playing opportunities outside of the AJGA for boys than there are for girls. There's more high school teams for boys than there are girls. There's more state level events for boys than there are for girls. So we feel like our responsibility is to try to do everything we can to level the playing field for the girls as much as possible. And I'm going to look down for a second because we just did this amazing study on our own organization from a gender standpoint. And I was just going to, I was going to look at this real quick. So yes, so we're like our top honors and awards: Rolex Junior All-Americans, Wyndham Cup teams, Junior Player of the Year, boys, Board of Representatives and Player Reps, the Jerry Cole Award. All of those we've moved to in the last 2 years to just say, you know what, the right thing to do is to do that 50-50. So we no longer honor more boys than girls because there's more members. We say, you know what, we've got 48 boys and 48 girls who are going to be at Rolex All-Americans. We've got one male and one female board representative, where we have a junior player sit on our association board. We've created just in the last 2 years, we said, why have one Jerry Cole Award? Why not have two? And let's designate that one's for a girl and one's for a boy, because we feel like equity, we feel like from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, it's the right thing to do, and we feel like we have a responsibility to set the standard for other organizations to look at how to do it right.
And I'm just in awe of the creativity you guys are, and the way you guys are always changing the needle and keeping ahead of everything. Out of all the awards Ian has been bestowed, and again, his story, and what's awesome is he's got a lot of awards for golf, but it seems like the ones that mean the most to me are the ones that aren't related to his play on the field. There's two awards that to me would embody the Leadership Links mindset, and ironically, it's not his winning that he had at the AJGA. And I just selfishly happen to have his trophy here, Kevin, with the AJGA. Dad is proud of this. He worked hard for this. But anyway,
you know that. We know that.
Yeah.
That when a kid wins, it's funny how you see the PGA and LPGA players. They're kind of like NASCAR drivers now. When they win, they're thanking a lot of people. They're thanking my team.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the same. I mean, when a 16-year-old boy or girl wins a tournament, they better be going, hey, Mom and Dad were getting up early every day and driving me to the range. They were. I mean, it's a family commitment when you're playing.
Well, what made that story so special is the first round that we went down there to the Legends course and in Eureka, Missouri, and the local TV station had heard about Ian's fundraising through AJGA, through Leadership Links. So they came out and did an interview. They reached me the night before and they said, do you mind if we come out and do an interview? Well, Ian just happened to he shot 3 under and led the tournament that day. So I thought, oh man, this is just extra crap we don't need. Yeah, I mean, it's perfect, but I don't want Ian to get all caught up in this. You're a great golfer. Let's win the tournament first. And they came in and interviewed him. And that night we went to have pizza and there was Ian on the news. And the second round, I think he shot 1 or 2 over and he still had a good, like a couple shot lead. And then the third round, I remember, and I write about this in the book, kind of the drama that unfolded with, James Roller and some of the other kids that were in the tournament. And I remember sitting up on the 8th green or the 18th green. And I told myself that day I wasn't going to look at the live scoring all day because it's just, there's nothing good's going to come out of that. Even with a lead, I'm going to get more stressed. So I didn't look to the 18th hole. And I'm sitting there in my little chair and Ian's on the tee box and I don't honestly know where he stands. And my friend Brian Barnhart came up to me, whose son Brock now is a sophomore at Iowa State. And, he gave me a big hug because Brian has been through the battles with me and said, hey, it looks like your boy's going to win. And man, I tell you, Kevin, I just absolutely lost it. I started crying and bawling and Ian came up the fairway and he hit in the bunker and then he shanked it up by the left side of the green and he had a 5-shot lead. So, I mean, it didn't really matter, but he ends up bogeying. And that was one of the greatest moments of my life on the golf course. And it was winning the title. But I'll be honest with you, that was trumped by Ian winning the Jerry Cole Sportsmanship Award. And I to this day, I am amazed that he, was nominated. And I just happen to have that too in front of me, Kevin. I carry this with me. It weighs about 200 pounds, but I carry this with me. But I write about Jerry Cole. I did some research on Jerry Cole and kind of his hat thing that he used to do and kind of where that award came from. I wanted Ian to know such the honor it was to win that award. And the fact that it probably was the last year that you guys picked one male or female. It sounds like now you guys, which is the right decision. I just felt horrible for all the people that didn't win that award because their stories were just as compelling as Ian's, but you guys have to make that tough decision. So I applaud you. I applaud you for nominating Ian and for selecting him. And he is wearing that AJGA Jerry Cole Sportsmanship Award with honor. And I do want to take a second in the book. And, Ian did write his own speech at the Rolex All-American banquet. He got to speak, which was again, another phenomenal experience. And man, you guys talk about rolling out the red carpet. That Rolex All-American journey we were on, even though, Ian was there as a winner of an award, was absolutely amazing. It was like the Academy Awards. You guys just with Rolex, you guys just do an absolutely phenomenal job making those kids feel like, that's their day and it's unbelievable. It's absolutely unbelievable. But I want to read this, what he said at the very end of his speech. And he wrote most of this, and this kind of became our catchphrase going on. But he says, this room is full of great golfers with great accomplishments. I applaud all of you. However, please remember, you also have a tremendous opportunity to use golf to create great change in the world. Trophies gather dust, but making an impact in the lives of others will last forever. Thank you and good luck this week. Man, I tell you, that trophy gathers dust thing, I say that to him even when he does well in qualifying or he does something even academically. I say, that's great, Ian, but that's gathering dust now. And that's our little thing him and I have is, okay, it's time, pat ourselves on the back. We got a job to do. We got more life to live, So I will say, again, thank you very much for that. And the Johnston family is very proud. And his older brother, Seth, is unbelievably proud of his little brother, even though Ian's 6'6". He's still always going to be little brother to Seth.
Right. Yeah. That award is excruciating for us because, to your point,
I can imagine
there are so many good stories, and it's like you look at these things, and quite frankly, when we went to 2, it was the first thought was, well, there's just so many people that could win this. Let's add one. And then we thought, what, in fairness, if we're going to add one, we probably should add, make it a male-female. But there's so many good stories, kids who are making major impact on a community. They're not always, again, Ian's was so personal. And we have a lot of personal ones. We have kids
absolutely.
We have kids whose mom, died of breast cancer and that sort of thing. But Ian's was so compelling because it was just personal. And I have that experience in my family. My wife's brother, committed suicide. So I
didn't know that, Kevin. I'm sorry to hear that. I did not know that.
Yeah, no, and I don't always. I hardly ever talk about that.
Sure,
but with you, I know that how you understand. And I don't. I tell my wife that I will never understand what she's gone through and her parents have gone through. But when it's a story that's so personally compelling like that for Ian, I mean, we're sitting in this boardroom. You talk about losing it. I mean, we're like wiping our eyes. We're like, how in the world do we pick a winner out of this?
Right.
And so for somebody like Ian to win it, that award's special for our team because we require now. So there's a lot of things we've recently evolved to. One of them is we require a kid to be part of Leadership Links. Boy or girl, they
Absolutely.
have to be part of Leadership Links in order to be a Jerry Cole winner. The other thing, which I'm sorry we changed this after you left, but now if you're an award winner, you actually get to play in the Rolex event. So if you're
Ian did play in that.
He did.
PJ National.
But he earned his way in, not because of the award, right? He wasn't.
No, I think he won it because of the award.
Okay, because we had changed that recently. We changed that, not too long ago.
Now I know he was good enough, Kevin. But
yeah, okay. So he because we felt like it was important that kids who were there for All-American and Scholastic All-American and Jerry Cole Award, that they deserved the right to play in the Rolex. And so that's that was changed. It wasn't too long then before Ian when it was, hey, come down for the award, but unfortunately you don't get to play in the event. We changed that because we felt it was important.
You mentioned your wife's story, and I think being vulnerable, me telling my story allows other people to kind of have a safe space to talk about these things because unfortunately there's such a stigma with these things. And the story of Sam Gary. Sam is in my podcast. He's my third interview I did. So you'll have to go back and watch that. But Sam has become a personal friend of the family. I talk to him continuously. When COVID gets over and I can get out and do some speaking engagements, I want to get Sam involved. Talk about a guy that I tell Sam all the time. I said, I feel guilty that Ian won because you coming out with suicidal ideation at 15 years old is rock star stuff. That's heroic stuff, and you're changing lives. And the fact that suicidal ideation is so is not talked about now. Now I see that the interview that Oprah did the other day, she had come out and talked about her suicidal idea. I have not seen the interview yet, but I guess social media was talking about it in many contexts. But I think the fact, Kevin, that we now have a society that's accepting these things, that suicide, the thoughts of suicide are more than the actual acts of suicide. So there's many people out there thinking about killing themselves. So how can we have a society talk about these things and get people to find coping mechanisms? And man, for me, it was golf. It was just, after Seth died, I just immersed my life into investing in Ian's golf and being on the golf course for 4 hours, walking, feeling the wind blow and talking to people. And, I'd be sitting there talking for 4 holes with some mom about her sister who's an alcoholic, and Ian would go birdie, birdie and look over at me and I didn't even see him. I didn't see him go birdie, birdie because I'm so in discussion with this mom talking about her sister that's an alcoholic. And that's kind of what golf allowed me to do, is in a way disconnect from life. And I forever, ever will owe golf something. And again, our conversation today, we've covered already a few topics that hopefully people watching this can say, hey, this is more than just, the AJGA. This is more than Ian Johnston. This is more about golf. This is about life. And golf is an arrow in the quiver, Kevin. That's what it is.
Well, and kids are not. Clearly they're not immune to this stuff. And we have part of our Leadership Links. We have these State Cup Series events that are massive fundraisers for us. And
I saw that.
That
awesome.
program has just exploded in the last 3 years. I mean, when I got here, we had one, and we were smart enough to look at it and go, maybe if the model works, let's do some more. Well, we're in 2021, we're going to have at least 12, maybe 14. And they could, we've budgeted this year for those events to raise about $750,000 for charity. Well, the one we just recently had in Atlanta,
wow.
David and Maxwell Ford. David's the number one ranked player in the Rolex. He hosted the State Cup. Yep. And one's going to North Carolina and one's going to the University of Georgia. But one of their benefiting charities for the State Cup event was a local, I think it was called Safe Harbor House. And that was one of the local benefiting charities. And they had a guy that came out and spoke at the dinner. As we always try to do dinners because there's the opportunity from a character standpoint to say to the kids, hey, you need to get, wear a sport coat or at least, put on slacks and a shirt so you're not, in your golf shoes.
Yeah, so the State Cup Series is awesome, Kevin. I've been following it, and it's heroic what these juniors are doing. I wanted to talk about the involvement of an individual that Ian had the honor to play with when he won the Jerry Cole Award, and that's Ricky Fowler. Ricky has been kind of the face of Leadership Links. I'm amazed of what these pro athletes do in getting involved in junior golf, and Ricky seems to be the guy that you've gravitated to. Can you tell me a little bit about how Ricky got involved and how impressed you are with how he's taken to these kids?
Oh my gosh! Well, I'll start by saying I love the guy. He is a great guy, and he's so authentic. I guess Ian would say the exact same thing. Ricky got involved. He played a lot of AJGA golf, had a pretty good career, was an All-American, played on Wyndham Cup teams. And he came from sort of that similar era of the Jordan Spieths, Justin Thomases, and that group. Ricky loves giving back. He loves making a difference. And he felt like he wanted to do something, but he wasn't quite sure he wanted to do his own tournament. And so we asked if he would be willing to get involved and help us raise some money for Leadership Links. And he said, absolutely. What do I have to do? And so Ricky has been, to your point, he's been the face of what we've done with Leadership Links fundraising. The kids that raise money for what Ricky does are top fundraisers across the board. They get to come down to Medalist Golf Club. They play 9 holes with Ricky. They have lunch. But Ricky's, one year it got rained out, and Ricky said, hey, you know what? Let's go to my house. And so he took the entire group to his house. They walk in the door, and I love hearing the kids tell the story about walking in the door, and like there's this wall of glass windows into the garage, and the garage floor rotates. And so the cars spin by the window, and the kids, they were like, Ricky took some kids bowling one year because the weather didn't allow for golf. So, he's not one of those athletes who shows up and goes, oh, guess we're not going to do it. See y'all later. And the funny thing was the first year I was with him when we were doing that, he pulled me aside. He said, I just want to make sure, like, these kids' parents aren't writing checks for like $50,000. And I'm like, no. These kids are raising money. And that's
Right.
and he goes, I know you guys do it the right way. He goes, I just have to ask because he goes, I could probably make $500,000 at least doing one of these. And I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. So again, I say that to say Ricky is the kind of guy that he loves being with the kids, wants to be with those kids, and he only wanted to do it if they were actually raising money for charity, not if some parent was, with a big checkbook was going, oh, so my kid can get in for okay, here you go, here's your check for charity. Ricky was like, no, this has to be authentic. This has to be kids like Ian who have a purpose, a cause, a desire to give back, and I'll spend time with those guys.
He just reminds me so much of Zach Johnson, because Zach's that same, humble, just a caring individual. And Zach does his fundraiser here, every year, the Zach Johnson Charity Classic. And Ricky came up a few years back and played up at Elmcrest. And I remember, I don't know, it was probably 5 years ago, and I took Ian with me, and so we got to see Ricky. And then 5 years later, Ian played 9 holes with Ricky and played 18 with Zach. It was pretty cool because Larry Glatson, who's the pro at Elmcrest, and you guys actually came out when Ian won the award and did a story out there and interviewed Larry. But he was Zach's original swing coach back when Zach was in high school here in Cedar Rapids. And so, that was always kind of neat to say, well, Ian's swing coach is Zach Johnson's swing coach. Well, I think it was right after Ian graduated, we were sitting around and I get a text from Larry and he says, what's Ian doing? And I said, oh, he's probably golfing at Airport National or something. Well, Zach wants to get 3 kids to play with, and he doesn't want anyone to come out to the course. He just wants to keep it quiet. And so I didn't get to go. But so Zach and Brock Barnhart and Connor Neighbors, who's at Southern Illinois, all friends together, went up and played 18 holes with Zach, kind of like a private golf outing. And Zach had actually requested some kids to play with him. I just thought that was so awesome. Not many kids, not many athletes are going to want that. They're going to say, leave me alone. But I told Ian, don't ask for autographs, don't do photo ops, just go up there and be around Zach. Just enjoy the moment. And that's kind of what Zach wanted. And so yeah, I applaud Ricky Fowler for doing this. I see you guys have all these other guys. I think Billy Horschel does a tournament for you guys as well. And I know Brant Snedeker has his own Sneds tour, and it seems like these guys and gals, there's a ton of women doing this as well, the pro LPGA women that are doing these events as well. How awesome, man. You guys have it going. You have it going. And I want to help out as best as I can. And hopefully this podcast can get reshared or reposted. And dads and moms that are out there with junior golfers coming up can say, hey, there is a path forged. There are some other parents that have went down these roads, and we can pick up the phone. We can email Kevin Rinker. We can figure out how to get involved in leadership rinks. We can raise millions of dollars for charity. And that's what this is all about. And that's why I wanted you on my show, man.
Yeah, well, again, we're so fortunate here that we are around a bunch of great people. And it's, it's current members and families, and it's the Billy Horschels, and it's the Annika Sorenstam's of the world that have said, I love what you guys are doing. I'm willing to put my name on this. I'm willing to work alongside you. They're out there raising a ton of money for us. Jack and Barbara Nicholas, we've got our kids. It's actually next weekend that we'll have 8 kids at Jack and Barbara Nicholas's house for breakfast next awesome. Sunday morning, literally in Jack and Barbara's kitchen. She doesn't bake the breakfast, but she gets it delivered, but it's still good. She does make her own coffee, though. And so
I thought maybe Jack would make scrambled eggs or something. That would be that would be bucket list stuff.
He's pretty good, but I don't think he's not doing that for the kids. But that's one of those incentive things, like with Ricky and so we'll have 8 kids in their kitchen, and then we'll take them out to the Honda Championship, the Honda Classic, and they'll get to watch inside the ropes and do some fun stuff. But we're really fortunate that we're in a space that is built on giving back, and golf is a game that gives back. And whether it's a Ricky Fowler or a Zach Johnson, and I'm sure Ricky, as much as he loves giving back, he'd probably take one of those Masters jackets or an Open Championship from Zach. I think they both stand there, and Ian would probably look down on both of them like, "Hey guys," but I think Ricky would look over and go, maybe I could use one of those trophies. But
it is funny you say that. The picture of Ricky and Ian in my office, it's like, Ricky comes up to like Ian, like right here. But I tell you what, Ricky bombs it 50 yards, 100 yards past him on every drive. So height isn't much to do with it. Hey, as we wrap up, I do want to say that I would offer to the AJGA the opportunity to use the platform that I've kind of, this living undeterred mindset and the story that we have, to be able to offer our quote services to talk to anybody out there that would like to hear this story. I will tell you this, that I formed a nonprofit called the Choices Network, and it's the concept that to teach kids to make better choices when it comes to addiction, substance abuse, mental health, suicidal ideation, all these things, to choose to make the right choice. And as soon as I get some money in the coffers, last time I checked, I think I had like $1,000 in my nonprofit, which was probably $990 from me. But no, it's helping me pay for the books that we publish. It's helping me eventually travel. But I will make a donation to the Leadership Links on behalf of Ian Johnston and Seth as our kind of as our legacy. And I will do that, and I'll let you know when I do that. But I've only made one grant contribution, and that was to Sam Gary, to his Kick It for a Cause, I think it is, for suicidal ideation and mental health. That's the only grant we've ever made. I don't have enough money yet to be giving it out yet, but I want to emulate what you guys are doing at Leadership Links, and I want to try to do this Choices Network to raise funds and awareness that I can eventually start making some grants to organizations like the AJGA. And I do want to thank you, Kevin, from the bottom of my heart. And this is my small way to pay back the golf world. And I'm sure you and I will always be connected. And like I said, Ian would be here, but he's on his way to Arizona to get ready to play in a golf tournament. So,
well, I will say this before we wrap up. What you're doing is it's heroic, and it's a monumental lift for your family and for you personally. And it's interesting. I don't know if the best use of a relationship with you and with Choices Network is going to be, hey, send us a little money for the Leadership Links program. I'm well aware of that there are kids who are struggling. I'm well aware that in a room, and I know statistically, it's almost like 1 in 6, I think, kids have issues where they either have tried to commit suicide or are successful.
Right.
And so I know in our organization, and you know this way more than anybody, I just happened to learn this recently, in reading through your book and reading through another book that I had just been given. But we've got to figure out a way to get past the stigma of
right.
what this means, and because for parents, it's hard for a parent to sit there. And I heard this guy speak just recently, and it was actually not Safe Harbor. It's actually called Summit Counseling, was the organization that benefited from the State Cup event. But he said, parents, when you look around this room, your kids are sitting over there at that table, and there's 8 of them. Statistically, at least one of those kids has either had the thoughts or has attempted suicide, and you may not even know it. And he really spoke to the parents to say, you've got to understand this. You can't, your kid's life is so much more difficult than your life. You didn't have this little thing, this device that delivered, to you every single moment, people telling you weren't good enough, or you didn't look right, or you were wearing the wrong thing. So he said, don't tell me that as a parent, you walked 2 miles uphill to, school in snow, and it was harder than your kids have it. Your kids, our junior golfers have it way harder. And so we've got to figure out a way to cut through that and deliver at least a sliver of hope back, wrapped in truth, that this is the reality of where we're at. So we'll have to have that conversation ongoing and figure out if there's a way where it's through your book or through something. But, I really feel like it's going to be a tough road, because there's going to be a lot of people going, we'd rather pretend like that's not really the reality.
Right.
And let's focus on what we do. But the reality is, if we've got 7,000 members, there's kids struggling, and if somehow, some way, we've got to figure out a way to share with some kids that there is some hope within the whole process. And so again, I just applaud you for what you're doing. I applaud you for taking what was the worst thing that could have ever happened to any parent and turning it into something that, while it is hard for you some days, you're shedding some real light and giving some hope to some people who, hopefully, because of your story, won't have to experience what your family experienced. So, I loved being on here. Thanks. I love watching on social media. I love the positivity with which you approach things. I know your music choices are kind of similar to to my era.
I'm an 80s heavy metal guy.
So
and I know you're a Florida Gator by heart. So
yeah.
I see your comments when they lose a game, and you poetically are very humble in some of your comments on why the game was lost. But it's interesting to know you off the course, and I've enjoyed getting to know you in our friendship.
Perfect, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Have a great day, and as I always end every show, live undeterred.